Have you ever wondered how rich people think about money and how other people think about money? Uh, the book that I'm going to share with you today, it's going to change the way you think about things around you, right? So it's a mindset shift that will happen for you with this particular book, and it's really cool because it changed my life for the better. uh, Back when I was in college, right, or right out of college, rather, 21, 22 years of age. And ever since then, the clarity with which I could see the world and, of course, see the patterns, it was real, right? So I could see it firsthand how this book and the concepts of this book impacted the life of people around me, because over the years I actually noticed my family members, my friends. I saw where they were investing, what they were spending on, how they were using their money, what were the habits that they had, which created this, their positives or negatives. Right now, as an entrepreneur, as a student entrepreneur, as a student, as an entrepreneur, as a future entrepreneur, all of these things, you need to know this so that you can actually spend your money, or rather invest your money at the right places, right? And that's why the book for today that I'm going to be sharing about is Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's a very famous book. It's this copy that I'm holding. This is a copy that my dad had bought, so probably like, you know 30 years back, maybe 40 years back. He bought it, and then I read it, and it's been with me for 8 years, 9 years approximately now. And imagine the impact one book can create over the generations, right? And I can see my father using it, consciously, unconsciously, that he's built assets for himself, and he's not dependent on going for a job every day. Rather, he's built that asset. He had to put in a lot of effort and a lot of uh, uh, you know uh, time, effort, money into making that asset. But then once it was created, it was there for a lifetime. So let me start from the beginning so that you actually understand. So, the one thing, the one concept that this book teaches, which is life changing, which I want you to know right now so that we can have the discussion further on, is that not everything you buy helps you, right? So in a me as a way that you're not investing your money everywhere. When you spend your money, there are certain things which are liabilities, and there are certain things which are assets. Now, over here, the author Robert Kiyosaki, he's not talking about it from the accounting sense of view. He's talking about it from the point that, hey, let me give you like the gist of what this particular thing is. So he talks about this idea that assets are things, places, venues, properties, whatever, wherever you put in the money. So, whatever thing that you're purchasing with your money, the assets are the ones that make that money again for you. So, assets are things, objects which put money back in your pocket, right? And the moment that happens, that object is an asset, right? Similarly, liabilities are things that when you spend on them, it just you've just spent on them, and it requires more spending of money from your pocket in order to upkeep them, right? So for example, why is this so important to understand? Is because we think that, buying a laptop is an asset, or buying a home is an asset, or buying a piece of land is an asset. Maybe not, depends on your circumstances, right? And what that means is, if you have to if you purchased a house, say for example, is that house making you money? Not really, right? Unless and until you plan to stay there for so long that your cost of rent is actually, you're covering all of that and more. You're earning on top of it. Is covered by that place where you're living. Say for example, if you stay there for 20 years, right? In that 20 years, the amount of rent that you would have paid would be 5 times, 10 times the actual cost of the house. Then that house is an investment. Why? It's an asset, because now it has actually paid you back. I mean, again, that's also a mindset. Like, you need to know that, hey, I'll be here for like 20 years, and that's why it's an asset, right? But it's not an asset when you go to a new city and you buy a house over there, and maybe 5 years later, 7 years later, you shift and you have that property, unless and until you put it on rent, it's not really helping you, right? It's not really helping you. So it's not an asset in that way. So that's one way to think about it. That's the way to think about a house. A house can also be a liability when the cost is essentially so much and there's so much upkeep. Like, you have to just take care of different maintenance and all of these things. You just have to keep putting money back into it, and then it becomes a liability, right? So again, a car is an asset. If, again, this is very simplified way, we're not talking about the accounting point of view, we're talking about it in the sense that it's something that you can apply. So for example, uh, if you want to buy a bike, why don't you buy two bikes, one that you ride, okay, and the other one becomes an asset for you, which you can rent. You rent that bike. This can be a bicycle, it can be a motorbike, but you rent that bike out, and that bike is now your asset because it's putting money back into your pocket. That's the simple definition that Robert is pushing for us to understand over here, right? Anything that takes money out of our pocket is a liability. Anything that puts money back into our pocket is an asset, right? For example, this tablet that I'm recording this on, or my phone that I just had to buy, all of these are assets for me. Why? Because I know that I am earning directly by the gadgets that I own, and of course the internet that I have access to it through them, right? So I'm directly earning through these gadgets, and that's why they are my assets. They are my direct assets, right? I don't own a laptop right now. I have an old laptop which I don't even open, but it's there. It's not an asset anymore right now, and there was a point where I had to put in money into that laptop to make it function, and so it became a liability after a point. You understand? So everything can be an asset, and over time what happens is an asset can also become a liability, right? A car which becomes so old that you have to put more money in again and again for repair, and money and time and effort and everything, and it takes out more than it actually puts back into your pocket, right? So that's the idea, that's the simple idea of this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it's written beautifully. It's such a conversational tone. It's a good story. It's a really accessible. He's really done a good job, and that's why it's stood the test of time. 40 years in modern history is not an easy task at all, right? So he's done a remarkable job for him. I know the news and everything does not portray him really well, but I think he has really transformed financial education and financial literacy for an entire generation, or maybe two generations of people at least, right? And maybe the third one is you who's listening to this now. Why I'm talking to you about it? Because the better and the faster we learn about these concepts, the easier it becomes for us to apply them, right? Because we cannot apply the concepts immediately. It takes some time. It takes way of thinking about the world. When that changes is when you start, actually embarking on this journey. For example, most people do not, and again, Robert also talks about, and that's why Rich Dad Poor Dad. So he's done this contrast between Rich Dad, which is this his friend's dad, who's like a business builder. He owns multiple businesses and gets cash flow from them, and he says that that's my rich dad. And then there's Poor Dad is the one that it's his real dad, biologically real dad. And he is of the view that you need to learn, I mean, you need to educate yourself, you need to go for a job, and you stay there forever, right? So you basically grow up, you learn, you whatever, you take a good education and then you go for a high paying job, and then you keep doing that for the rest of your life. Now, uh, that is the story that most of us know, right? Because we've seen our parents do that. We've seen the That's the story that politicians tell us. That's the story that most people around in our society tell us, because no one really knows better, right? And no one really has done that research. I have done it. I have really struggled. It's almost been 10 years since I've been learning all of this and putting it all together and assimilating it. So I see that how flawed our societal thinking is, the broad overall thinking. And that's why what makes it important is that you really take care of it, you actually work on it beautifully. So Robert talks about this idea. There's a story in this. Let me read a couple of quotes from this so that you actually hear from him directly. All right. If you learn life's lessons, you will do well. If not, life will just continue to push you around. People do two things. Some just let life push them around, others get angry and push back. But they push back against their boss or their job or their husband or their wife. They do not know it's life that's pushing. Life pushes all of us around. Some give up, others fight, a few learn the lesson and move on. They welcome life pushing them around. To these few people, it means they need and want to learn something. They learn and move on. Most quit, and a few, like you, fight. So, this is essentially Rich Dad talking to Robert uh, on his first kind of interface with him, where he's essentially saying that most people quit, most people don't really push back, most people think that this is how life is, and they keep going at it. But some people, very few people, they push back. They want to know what's happening. They ask why it's so, and and there are even more so, even the tinier bit, which not just push back, but they are also pushing back to learn something. That how does it work? How can I learn something from this and apply it again? Right? How do I not make this mistake again, or how do I not get into this situation again? So that tiny minuscule of people who are trying to learn something from every incident, every situation, that's where the magic is, because those are the people who actually go on life. They keep on growing through life, and they're not stuck up on one particular idea, and they're the ones who you know create something of value in life. Now, uh, there's this really beautiful Steve Jobs video that is my favorite video uh, ever. And Steve Jobs is, by the way, the founder of Apple. In case you're not aware of him, do look him up. He's one of the greats, one of my personal heroes. Um, not just for the value that he created in the world through Apple, but also because how he managed his family or personal life along with the accomplishments that he had, right? So that I really value the balance between the two, and that's why I really like him. Now, he said that most people go through life just like that, right? Uh, that this is how life is, this is what the box looks like, uh, this is what happens, this is what happens to everyone, and that's it. They just go through life as if they're just a part of it. But that's not true. That's not true. Once you realize this fact about life, that when you push back, when you poke around, when you push uh, life somewhere, something else comes out the other side, right? That means you can change life, you can mold life, you can interact with it, you can interface with it, you can actually create something yourself that other people can use. And that all comes down from this fact, this realization that everything that I call life is is and was built by people just like me, no smarter than me. And so I can also contribute, I can also create value in this world, create something in this world that someone else uses, someone else interacts with, someone else benefits from, right? And once you realize that uh, you can do that, you can do that with life, then you won't be the same again, right? then you won't then you won't go through the motions, then you will want to push back, then you will want to change things, you will want to just move things around, see how things work, see how you can create value in this world. And that is my best uh, philosophical video by Steve Jobs, and it's really life changing in that way, right? And that's what I feel is what Robert is trying to share in this particular quote that I just read you. Let me read another one. All right. If you want to be rich, you've got to read and understand numbers. If you want to be rich, you've got to read and understand numbers. The rich acquire assets and the poor and middle class acquire liabilities. So the rich acquire assets, things that put money back in your pocket, and the poor and the middle class acquire liabilities, things which take money away from you, right? That's what the major part of this is. And then there are like these patterns, these like simple ways to understand money that he has put in. So it's really something that it's a book that you should definitely pick up, and probably in your life, maybe now, maybe 2 years later, maybe 5 years later, you will probably pick this up, because it is the primer to financial literacy today. It is like the foundation of financial literacy. So I'm not going to read everything, but yeah, still some of it. Now, let me read another thing. A true luxury is the reward for investing in and developing a real asset. For example, when my wife and I had extra money coming from our apartment houses, she went out and bought her Mercedes. It did not take any extra work or risk on her part, because the apartment house bought the car. She did, however, have to wait for it for 4 years while the real estate investment portfolio grew and finally began throwing off enough extra cash flow to pay for the car. But the luxury, the Mercedes, was a true reward, because she had proved that she knew how to grow her asset column. That car now means a lot more to her than simply another pretty car. It means she used her financial intelligence to afford it. So beautifully put. Uh, I don't know. You should go back, read that again, or listen to that again. It's beautiful. Another thing. When I say mind your own business, I mean to build and keep your asset column strong. Once a dollar goes into it, never let it come out. Think of it this way: once a dollar goes into your asset column, it becomes your employee. The best thing about money is that it works 24 hours a day and can work for generations. Keep your daytime job, be a great hardworking employee, but keep building that asset column, right? And yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. So again, I know he has oversimplified it, but it's not difficult as well. It's not difficult as well, right? So Robert has done a really good job at this. Probably I'm not doing a great job at this while explaining it, because it's been a very long time since I read this. Probably it's time for a refresher. Maybe I'll come back and make another video on it for you. But Rich Dad Poor Dad really explains that one concept that really can transform your life today, tomorrow, day after. It will change your life, because it will expand your mind to think about what are assets, what are liabilities, what are the things that I'm using today which are assets, and what are the things that I'm using today that are liabilities, and also where am I spending, which are assets and which are liabilities, right? Some things are assets, hidden as liabilities. Some things are liabilities hidden as assets as well, right? For example, clothes that you wear are, they come under liabilities, but they are really assets, right? If you wear good clothes, you have a higher chance of getting a better job, getting more sales for whatever you're trying to sell, and of course, just meeting the right kind of people. And that all happens just by wearing good clothes, having good sense of style, having to, I mean, invest in yourself and how you look, right? That also includes to how groomed you are, and so on. And similarly, there are assets that are hiding as, or sorry, there are liabilities that are hiding as assets as well. For example, uh, I don't know, a car, right? If a car is just something that you move around and go around the city in, and it's not directly linked to your work, then it's a liability, right? Then it's some money that you're just spending, and it's, you're not really earning back from it. So it's a liability in that way. So yeah, so there are things that you can understand, that you can see the world in a different way, and of course, it will also open your mind to see how you can create opportunity for yourself. That is another important topic that I'll probably cover soon in one of the videos. But yeah, looking at the world and creating opportunity for yourself, that's a beautiful way to look at it, right? So if you liked it, please do give me a follow, give me a subscribe, and write down in the comments which book you would like me to cover, or what topics are frustrating you, so that I can cover those in the upcoming books that I have lined up. But I will also be sharing more about other topics on physics, on science, on entrepreneurship. And so yeah, follow along for the journey, and see you in the next one. See you, bye.